The fact is that there's really no reason currently for Putin to want to stop or freeze this war. He thinks he's winning on the battlefield, and the motivation for him to stop at the moment is pretty low.
As diplomatic efforts continue to bring peace to Ukraine, all eyes are on Anchorage in Alaska. Here is Democratic Alaskan Representative Andrew Gray saying he has concerns about the visit of President Putin.
I have a lot of personal feelings about the actions of President Putin, and I do not want him welcomed as any sort of hero. He is a war criminal, and I think, making sure that Alaska isn't used to somehow platform him as a return to the world stage, that's a fear that I have. I don't want my city and my state to be used in that way.
Jim Townsend is the former US Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defence for European NATO policy. He says there are concerns that this could result in a bad deal.
The great fear is that, sure, there'll be a deal that Putin wants to make. He's going to strike a deal, and the deal's a terrible one. And that Trump feels pressure and feels he needs to grab that so he has something good to say at the press conference. So that's something I know that Europe and other world leaders are watching with some trepidation, that maybe he'll be too easy.
Well, let's speak to the Times World Affairs editor, Catherine Philp. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Callum.
Good to speak to you. I want to start with the language that's been used through today from Donald Trump, from the Kremlin as well. It all seems to be relatively good-natured, actually. Putin praising Trump's sincere efforts to end the conflict. Trump says there's a 25% chance that the meeting with Putin tomorrow will not be successful. What does this do to sort of establish the atmosphere around this summit?
Well, I think everyone wants to be the good guy before they even get going. The worst fears of the European allies are that that Putin is setting Zelensky up for failure, the Ukrainian president, so that he will somehow sweet talk Trump into some conditions that are unacceptable to Zelensky, who will then be forced to say no, and then the failure will be on him, and Russia will evade any of these serious consequences that Trump has spoken of. So I think that is the main concern with all this bonhomie between the two leaders going on, is that the man that's shut out of the room is the one who's going to take the fall if he doesn't agree to what they do.
Trump's approach seems to be have a good meeting tomorrow, which will result in a second meeting soon. Is that a sensible approach?
Nothing about this process has been sensible. You don't leave it up to two leaders to try and work out the deal between them in this format. You do the work before the meeting. So no, it's not. However, we are where we are. They have chosen to do it this way. If somehow Trump could bounce Putin into an immediate meeting with Zelensky, he's even talked about them all staying in Alaska and getting Zelensky over there, then it would be Putin who's the one putting up the obstacles and saying no if he's not prepared to meet Zelensky. And again, that would certainly be better than a bad deal, than forcing Ukraine into a bad deal. Let Putin expose himself as the obstacle, because the fact is that there's really no reason currently for Putin to want to stop or freeze this war. He thinks he's winning on the battlefield, and the motivation for him to stop at the moment is pretty low.
In terms of what Trump has by way of leverage, because of course we're hoping for a good outcome, he is threatening sanctions in the aftermath of this thing if he doesn't hear the answers he wants. Does Trump have a decent amount of leverage over Putin?
He could, if he chose to use all the levers available to him. Unfortunately, he's already misrepresenting what he's done so far. He said that the sanctions that were put on India for buying Russian oil have been instrumental in bringing Putin to the table. Well, in fact, those sanctions don't actually take effect until August the 27th. So they've had almost nothing to do with it materially. one of the other issues that puts this all in jeopardy, I think, is are some noises out of the Kremlin that they want to move the conversation on to beginning talks about limits on nuclear arsenals and positioning, which is something that has sort of collapsed over the last few years. Sorry, there's just an air raid warning
Oh
going on
no.
here, Steve. It's okay.
Do
It
you need to
doesn't
go,
affect
Catherine?
me. Just a bit of background noise. But the other concern is that Putin will try and lure Trump with talk of economic partnership. He's taking some very senior members of his economic team with him. So I think that is, that is something that Trump is susceptible to, and Putin will be aware of that. So
Yeah.
he may be out there to dangle some transactional carrots.
Catherine, thank you so much for speaking to us. We'll let you go for now, given the situation. Thank you, though. That is Catherine Philp, the Times World Affairs editor, reporting from Kyiv, where there is an air raid alert right now.
We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great. A lot of locations, a lot of areas, you deal with some of the people that are commissioners that are... I think that President Putin would like to see a deal. I think if I weren't president, he would take over all of Ukraine.
Mr. President, as you know, there were some very concerning reports about crime statistics.
I would say that tomorrow, all I want to do is set the table for the next meeting, which should happen shortly. I'd like to see it happen very quickly, very shortly after this meeting. I'd like to see it actually happen maybe in Alaska, where we just stay because it's so much easier. But I think that it's going to be very interesting. We're going to find out where everybody stands, and I'll know within the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, like we tend to find out, whether or not we're going to have a good meeting or a bad meeting. And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly. And if it's a good meeting, we're going to end up getting peace in the pretty near future.
Пострел! Ну не насильно выше надо брать. Я же сказал, совсем чуть-чуть. Ну сейчас второй раз попал. Пострел! Охуеть! Опа! У него шуфляда сзади. Всі пересування.
В этой стойке, это если вы правша. Если вы левша, соответственно, будет так.